Thank you. Hello, good morning to everybody. For those who do not know me, my name is Jürgen Tiedje. You see my picture here on the top. I'm happy to chair the panel session on partnership, 1 year review, which sounded a bit administrative. So when I discussed it beforehand with the 4 panelists, which I'm happy to introduce, actually we said it's better to talk about partnership, why, what, how, because it's very early and it's actually an instrument which has lots of challenges. So I'm happy to introduce here 4 panelists. I'm starting with you, Daria, if you can join us here. So it's Daria Julkowska, who is the Assistant Director of INSERM here in France, in Paris. But she's also the member of the independent expert group, which the Commission has set up to look at partnerships at large. How do they work? And I think the more technical title is to look at a harmonized reporting and a monitoring of the partnerships, and you will share some insights a bit across the board, what you have seen. The next one is here, it's Eva Koczynska-Lange. Happy to have you here, Eva. Eva is the director of the National Center for Research and Development from Poland. She's located in Brussels. You can, I think that's it, yeah, come over. And that's the main reason why we have invited her. She's also a member of an expert group of member states. We call it the Partnership Knowledge Hub, because at the beginning of the partnership debate under Horizon Europe, there was lots of interaction with the member states. What are actually the expectations? And now let's go really to the practice. So I'm happy to welcome Riikka Virkkunen from Made in Europe, so the co-chair. Happy to have you here. Maybe you'll find a seat here as well. Riikka Virkkunen is from the VTT in Finland. She's, I think, a very active player. I heard also on the National Artificial Intelligence Program you're very active, but we know each other, I think, in particular from Factories of the Future, from Made in Europe, because you're the co-chair of the partnership board, but you're also, I think, the coordinator of important projects already. Okay, so glad to have you here. You're really standing for the industrial side, the private side, who was witnessing what should happen, what should change. Fourth but not least, Aurelia Ciza, who is the vice chair of Aspire, representing the partnership processes for Planet. And she is also the director for industrial affairs and raw materials, EMA Europe, the Industrial Minerals Association. So before we start, I would like to say that I'm so happy to have here 4 panelists, and for once to have 4 panelists around me, because I will be seated in the middle. 2 weeks ago, I've been at another conference, and it was in Helsinki, and I was the only moderator physically present due to flight disruptions, COVID, whatever else. All 4 panelists had to connect remotely, so I'm very happy to have actually 4 panelists physically with me. That's really great. And I think to kick off the debate, Daria, you will give us a keynote speech of 20 minutes. Then each of the panelists will have an introductory statement. We have a panel discussion, and before we start, questions from your side. And you're invited really to ask questions. You can do it via Slido only. So you have either the hashtag here, INTAG2022, or you can take the QR code. This will remain for the whole session so that you can use it and also ask for questions. So there will be time for questions via Slido, but only Slido. There will be no microphone where you could come in. That's the easiest way. Good. Without further ado, over to you, Daria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think we have it. Yeah, we have it on. So thank you very much for inviting me here and giving me the opportunity to speak about the strategy and the work that is being done around the European partnerships, their monitoring, their performance and their impact as it is being considered under Horizon Europe. So, first of all, I think it is important to remind that the European partnerships, of course, are not a new concept. They actually exist since already 2002 and were created as part of the European research area to overcome the fragmentation of research on topics of high added value. And so they combine different types of instruments, like the ERANETs, the joint undertakings, the Articles 185 and 87 instruments, the European Joint Programme COFAND, but all of them had the same basis, to bring together the Union and the private and public stakeholders to commit jointly to support the development of research and innovation programs. And under Horizon Europe, the partnerships remain central to the Horizon Europe objectives and the EU priorities, and they also become an instrument in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals to accelerate the twin green and digital transition and strengthen the position of EU as global competitive player. For the monitoring and evaluation of the European partnerships, it really receives a new dimension under the Horizon Europe. First of all, because of the fact that for the first time it is really fully integrated into the Horizon Europe monitoring and evaluation framework. So, for example, it is translated into harmonization of the monitoring mechanisms between the partnerships and the overall Horizon Europe, which is expected to be completely integrated as a component of the framework program, but also confronted with other Horizon Europe instruments. And the data on the projects, for example, financed by the partnerships, should be integrated also in the EC IT systems. To ensure further harmonization, it is also expected that the partnerships are going to set up their own monitoring system dedicated that is going to allow on the close follow-up of their advancements towards their general, specific, and operational objectives that are also reflected through their key performance indicators. And on top of that, we also have a set of common indicators that allow to measure the functioning of all European partnerships and foster specific aspects, for example, of the European research area. Sorry for that. So, in this context, we have a dedicated, all that is done within the context of so-called strategic coordination process, which involves both the member states and the European Commission, and that should be conducted according to a common criteria framework to provide the evidence on the added value of the partnerships, but also to guide the portfolio of their development and the foresight. And in this context, we had a dedicated expert group, as mentioned before, of which I was a member, and which was really appointed to accompany and to support the development of the harmonized reporting and monitoring systems for all the partnerships. And one of the key activities that the expert group was to develop was the framework for the biennial monitoring report and delivery of the first BMR for the year 2022. Of course, as you can imagine, this was done in the close collaboration with the member states, with the partnerships, as well with the European Commission. And so today I'm going to give you a few insights about the specific report and hopefully show how this report is a useful tool to show the partnerships assessment, but also the impact of the partnerships in the context of the Horizon Europe. So currently we have 49 partnerships, which are divided into different clusters according to their specificities, but they also integrate the European Institute of Technology and Innovation ecosystem, as well as the cross-pillar partnership. And so for this first biennial monitoring report, we had 37 out of the 49 partnerships that were analyzed. And so as you can see here, the ones that are marked with this purple frame were not integrated in the report simply because of the fact that they were not yet implemented, they haven't started. And you can also see here in this picture the division between different types of partnerships. So we have the institutionalized, the co-funded, and co-programmed. Another element that has to be taken into account when reading the report is the starting point. So as you can imagine, many different partnerships, even though many of them also stemmed from already pre-existing initiatives, they consider that it is quite difficult to establish a specific starting point And this is because of the fact that they are not just simple continuations, but they really enlarge in terms of the scope, but also included new activities, or they merged from smaller pre-existing partnerships. And so for that, it was agreed that our benchmark for this specific first report will be the data from the Horizon 2020 partnerships. Of course, keeping in mind that this is just a starting point, and that in the future, to demonstrate the added value of the partnerships, it is really necessary to collect the new data that goes, of course, beyond this, this first BMR 2022. So in terms of the composition, thank you. In terms of the composition, we have 4 main parts of this report. The first one is the introduction that is covering the policy context, the landscape of starting from Horizon 2020 to Horizon Europe, but also the whole strategic coordinating process. The chapter 2 is covering the contributions of the European partnerships to the 3 main elements that I'm going to describe today: the key European objectives, the key impact pathways, as well as the common indicators. And then we have 2 chapters, the third one that is focusing on the country level. So it really covers, so we have so-called the country fishes, where you can see the participation of each of the country, as well as the coverage of different partnerships. And finally, the fourth one, which is the partnerships profiles, that covers where you can have a single fish per partnership that covers their key performance indicators, their specific objectives, as well as the partnership-specific impact pathways. So, even though the overall number of the partnerships was drastically reduced between the Horizon 2020 and the Horizon Europe, one of the most striking results that we can see already from this report is the significant increase in the budget that is dedicated to the partnerships. And as you can see, it covers almost 25% of the overall Horizon Europe budget, and almost 40% of the Horizon Europe Pillar 2, which is the global challenges and EU industrial competitiveness. And this translates into the more than 23 billion euros of the contributions from the Commission, and more than 31 from different types of partners other than the Commission, like the member states and the industry. And if you look more closely, for example, at the joint undertakings, which are mostly the industry-driven, you can see that the majority of this, that they take actually quite a big part of this budget, which is 57%. We can also demonstrate already that the partnerships are strongly contribute to the twin digital and green transition, as well as to EU resilience. And as you can see, based on the data that was collected, we can see that more than 67% of the partnerships collective resources are planned to be allocated to research and innovation to contribute to the Green Deal. And when we compare with the data from the Horizon 2020, we see that there is an increase in the budget of more than 100%, for example, in the contribution and the foreseen contributions to the digital transition. And this strong involvement also in the partnerships into EU priorities is also translated through different types of the sustainable development goals that are stated here and to which they participate. And already from the BMR, we can show that they address it in a very multidisciplinary way, which means also that we can demonstrate the possibilities and clear potential for the synergies and the collaboration between the partnerships across different clusters. And so actually when we look at the clusters, because this is also possible and presented in the report, so here you can see the overall presentation of, for example, how the different clusters are contribute to the Green Deal, how it is divided among different clusters. And if we look, for example, much closer on the cluster 4, you can see what is the benchmark for the foreseen budget, as well as what is the target. And we can go even to the lower level and see how the different missions and the objectives are reflected by the specific partnerships, like the one presented here, for example, for the Process for Planet, where we can see the exact details of how the specific partnerships want to address the different objectives. Another element, important element, as it was mentioned before, is the monitoring and the evaluation of Horizon Europe, which is structured around the so-called key impact pathways, and that help to measure the scientific, societal, and economic impact of the framework program. And so the European partnerships, of course, are fully integrated in the Horizon Europe monitoring framework, and so it means that they, of course, are going to feed also with the specific data those key impact pathways, for example, through the results of their proposals and project level data. Furthermore, and as you can see also here on the example of photonics, it is also expected, and this is already happening, that the key performance indicators of the specific partnerships are also aligned with the key impact pathways, and so they translate into they can be translated into those specific key impact pathways, which of course facilitate to the measuring on how specific partnerships are contributing to that. However, and it is important to keep in mind that this is not perfect alignment because of the fact that key impact pathways are really reflecting on, are really quite transversal and horizontal, and are also reflecting on the time dimension. So the short, medium, and long-term impacts, which are not necessarily always fitting within the framework of the way how the partnerships want to deliver. So this has to be also, of course, kept in mind. But also on the other hand, because of this horizontality of the key impact pathways, it is not all the elements or not the full impact of the partnerships and the added value of the partnerships can be simply captured by the key impact pathways. So it is important, of course, to measure the whole additionality of the partnerships through their dedicated monitoring systems, their own key performance indicators, and other elements that they design to measure their impact. A third element that I've mentioned are the common indicators, and as you can see here, there were 11 common indicators that were set up by the expert group, of course, again, in collaboration with the partnerships, as well as the member states and the European Commission. And so those 11 common indicators, as you can see here, the ones that are in bold, were already measured for the first biennial monitoring report. The ones in the light gray were not, because of the fact that we do not have yet the data for that, but of course they will be integrated in the forthcoming reports. And if we look at the common indicators, they must be complementary to the key impact pathways, and also they reflect on the three very specific dimensions. So the first one is the additionality and the directionality. And this is being translated through the added value of the European partnerships that derives from, of course, the additional private and or public investment in the EU priorities, and that can be translated into the leverage effect, and this is what we call the additionality. And then we have the alignment of these investments and contributions towards the common objectives and the achievements of impacts that cannot be created alone by the Horizon Europe elsewhere and the national activities, and this is what we call the directionality. Then we have the transparency and openness, because it is important that the partnerships can demonstrate how actually they maximize the impact by involving all important stakeholders, and that they go beyond the, let's say, narrow composition of the core partners, and also that they remain open through their lifetime. And finally, we have the coherence and synergies. And this is also very important, because partnerships need to demonstrate how they act, that they do not act in isolation, but also that they can collaborate in a broader landscape, also, for example, with to seek the exploitation of the synergies with the other partnerships, but also with the other parts of the Horizon Europe program or the European Horizon missions. So the monitoring of those common indicators is really intended to be ambitious and to help in capturing the added value of the partnership, but at the same time keeping the let's say the collection of data, burden of the collection of data on the partnerships to the minimal. And the pilot survey that we used for this first reporting for the first report was really the first attempt to build a coordinated monitoring process for all the partnerships that can help in seeing them as a policy instrument in an aggregated way. So I'm going to give you a few examples of these 3 dimensions that I've just mentioned, and the first one being I have already mentioned about the additionality and directionality with the budgets that are being dedicated by the partnerships and the leverage effect that they are already bringing. But here you can see that the partnerships also are the real trigger to expand the stakeholders' involvement. And as here shown with the example of the Made in Europe, they already foresee to implement, for example, a dedicated networking, marketing, brokerage events to expand and build the community, especially to target the newcomers or the small and medium enterprises, but also they target, for example, the funding agency to try to translate, let's say, the concept like the one of the Made in Europe, also not only at the national, but also at the regional level. Another important part of the partnership is the openness and the integration of the newcomers, as well as the widening and deepening of the European research area. And as you can see here, this is what is being foreseen in terms of the integration of the different countries in the partnerships that were analyzed in the current report. But actually the partnerships are not only covering the era, but also the collaboration beyond the European, let's say, or the EU member state countries. And so when we were asking them about what are the other countries that you are involving, Norway and Israel were the ones that were the most cited, but it really goes also beyond, let's say, Europe and countries like Brazil, Canada, China, Chile, or United States were also cited quite often. Finally, the last part of this, let's say, building of the networks is really not only inclusion of the countries and the newcomers, but also, as I mentioned, this synergies and coherence in terms of the collaboration between partnerships themselves. And of course, this is very crucial, not only for the better harmonization, but also the leverage effect, but also to strengthen the contribution to the different Horizon Europe objectives. And as you can see here, again, we have the central position, for example, of the EIT Climate Kick and AI Data in Robotics that show the largest number of the collaborations and joint activities. But of course, this is something that is going to evolve through the lifetime, because as you can imagine, these were the collaborations that were noted at this time point, and more collaborations are to come. So to summarize, of course, this biennial monitoring report is just a starting point. And as I mentioned previously, it is going to include, there will be more possible data to be included in the further ones, but the monitoring and evaluation of the partnerships goes beyond this biennial monitoring report, and it requires further improvement and development if we want to have it as a part of the strategic coordination process. And so the group of experts, in our last report, we decided to provide some dedicated recommendations on how this process in general can be improved. So how can we improve, for example, further the monitoring process of the partnership, how we can improve the data collection and facilitate the data collection, how can we use better the partnerships as a policy instrument, as well also how to facilitate the mutual learning topics, because even though the partnerships already exist since a long time, this new dimension of the partnerships, their integration in the Horizon Europe as a key element, as a key instrument is extremely important, and so it requires a specific approach. And so you can find more information about the report, of course, all the details about the recommendations and the elements that were provided by the group of experts, as well as all the details about the biennial monitoring report in the different publications. So I encourage you to go and look at those. And with that, I would like to thank you, and of course, we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Daria. Thank you for this horizontal overview about all partnerships. because we are not speaking here about an individual project which you can visit here. We're speaking here about many, many partnerships. But let's bring in now the other perspectives. So how do the member states see this? And also how actually the individual partnerships, we speak in total about 23 billion euros devoted under Horizon Europe, but this is not devoted to one partnership, these are many. How is it actually foreseen for each of the partnerships? So Eva, maybe what is your perspective as regards the member states?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thanks for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here and to share my views on this topic. And indeed, as the director of the National Center for Research and Development, Business Science Poland, I'm the member also of various groups run by the European Commission, including a Strategic Program Committee and Partnership Knowledge Hub. So I'm involved in this process from the very beginning. And I must say that once we started, of course, those groups were not yet formulated. Everything was in a working mode. It was like 3 years ago, even more. It was not easy. It was really kind of difficult to find a way through and to understand the whole process and to get ready as a member state to make a decision on the participation in specific partnerships dedicated to member states directly. As you could see on the Daria slides, quite some of them are there, 49, and some of them are like co-funded. That means that member states are participating directly. Some of them are like joint undertakings. Indeed, sometimes it doesn't involve member state, but sometimes it does. And co-programmed. In most of them, member states are not partners, but as a member state, we also have an interest for our stakeholders, companies, research institutions, to be present there. So, as I said, it was not easy. The main question that we were asking to ourselves, also with other member states, was why we really need them and how many at the end we need them. And then immediately after, there were questions how much money we can spend on them and why so much, and also for what topics and how to proceed with all those discussions. So the pretty easy conclusion at the beginning was that the landscape is very complicated. So back in Horizon 2020 and even beforehand, it was really not so easy even for a member state experts to understand, and not to mention the specific beneficiaries. So we were 100% sure that we have to simplify the whole system, and that's done because this map of 49 divided into different types makes the thing whole easier to understand. But we also were pretty sure that we need to invest in them other money than just Horizon Europe. So this is what also Daria mentioned about this additionality, that not everything that we want to achieve is possible to be done just by Horizon Europe budget or just by member state budget or private sector budget. So we need to join forces, and that's why we have European partnerships. That's why we want to really progress and to make some the results easier and faster within a specific time. So that was also quite easy. But the whole discussions that we had were really exactly about the budget, because as you know, from Horizon Europe, 49% of the Pillar 2, so the biggest part of Horizon, is devoted to partnerships. And then, of course, those discussions at the member state levels. What to do, how much money we can invest. And this process was really difficult also because we didn't have the kind of common set of data. So we really had to track down everything and go back to some national and also European statistics about participation of specific companies or research institutions or other entities and initiatives that were like before the European partnerships or in specific programs that were complementary, and really to decide what's the potential, what do we want to do, how much budget of the state budget we can contribute to those actions. And we were for that reason, advocating a lot for having this process more structured and better structured and organized. And that's why we also have now this Partnership Knowledge Hub that is discussing indeed the latest developments within partnerships as a whole. So, this is this umbrella approach to all partnerships. We are not experts in every single one of them, but we want to have the overlook as a member states. We are discussing with the experts, with the Commission as well, how to progress, what to do. Now, at the moment, we also have discussions about the so-called second wave of partnerships, since we started at the beginning of Horizon Europe with some of them from this 49 list, and some of them are still in the making. And that's quite important for us to have a bit of a better organized situation and landscape to understand what's going on. And as a Partnership Knowledge Hub, we are kind of advising or feeding a bit into the discussions of this decisive body, which is the Strategic Program Committee, who has the final say about what to do, how to progress, how to develop partnerships. So it was quite difficult 3 years ago. Now it's getting a bit more easy because we are actually organizing this process, and this report that Daria was talking about is also helping a lot, although we are all aware that it's based on data from Horizon 2020, since we don't yet have the data from Horizon Europe. But the system is there, so we hope that at the moment we will have to decide again what to do and how to align our strategies as well with what's happening on the European level. We will have a better system to profit from. And we are also very eager as member states, I think, to feed the report with data from our databases, and to share also our success stories, or maybe sometimes not so success stories, but some experiences from implementation phase of partnerships. So I think that will be it from my side.
Thank you, Eva. So the Partnership Knowledge Hub, the instrument for member states really to get insights of what is happening in the partnerships. Okay, let's turn now to the industry. Of course, I don't want to call you now, you're on the other side, but you're the partners, but it's one partnership out of 49. So Rika, you stand here for Made in Europe. Can you share with us a bit your insights, your vision? How do you see it, please?
Thank you very much, and thank you for choosing Made in Europe for the example here. So yes, I'm here representing the new Made in Europe partnership for manufacturing, but this of course is not totally, although this partnership is new, but it has a long history. And it is clear that it's extremely important to have a partnership in this area, because manufacturing is the backbone of the European economy. And it is employing about 30 million people around Europe and bringing prosperity to many regions of Europe. And at the same time, it's very globally spread, so in the global competition, because also other areas like US and China are investing a lot in manufacturing innovation. So we really need to join forces in Europe to keep this good position we have, maybe the leadership in the manufacturing in the future as well. So it is very good that we have all the time had, since the partnership started, a partnership in manufacturing. And now, of course, we are very happy about having the new one, Made in Europe, running. At this point, of course, it's very difficult to say what is the success story of the Made in Europe yet, but I mean, we can think about what has happened in the past in the Factories of the Future partnership and think about the results there, and bring continuity from the Factories of the Future partnership to the Made in Europe, and at the same time renew. When setting up the Made in Europe partnership now, within a couple of years, and then officially starting a year ago, a lot has actually happened. So we have had the ability to have a great strategic research agenda, which is set up together with the Commission and the EFRA, the European Factories of the Future Research Association, and the member states. We have also sketched the impact pathways to the general objectives of the to the SDGs, but in particular, of course, the European policy objectives like the Green Deal, the economy, the digital transformation, and then also in particular the new industrial policy of Europe. So the impact pathways to these objectives is there. Also, the KPIs have been discussed and sketched. So we have a very good framework already working. The board is there, and the discussions of the call topics has been ongoing with the Commission and the member states actively. So, and even we have the first calls accepted, and the projects are about to launch. So in a way, we are in a very good starting position here, and we are very happy to connect to the sort of new other emerging and starting partnerships, and continue also with the previous partnerships. So we have made agreements with, in particular, the EIT manufacturing, of course, which is quite natural because it is operating on the same sector, but in a different, so to say, TRL level, so to say, and also with different goals. But also with many other partnerships, photonics, metrology, big data, robotics. So all these partnerships are extremely important for the manufacturing community. So we are very well spread to this network and want to continue doing it. So all in all, I mean, I think everything has started very smoothly, and we are sort of eagerly starting to work within this partnership and see the great potential of working together with all of you.
Thank you, Rika. Thank you for coming with this view from a particular partnership. And I would like to continue this with the introductory statement. Aurela, what is the point of view of Aspire, who stands for the private side of Process for Planet? Aurela.
Well, yeah, thank you for asking Aspire or Processes for Planet to be on this panel. For us, the story starts already back in 2013, where we first built our first partnership with 8 sectors, notably the cement, the chemicals, the steel sector, non-ferrous. Minerals are part of it, water engineering, and in the new partnership that has been signing up last year, we have already 2 new sectors, pulp and paper, as well as a refining sector. So for us, there is a certain way of moving forward, but at the same time not missing the scope of action for all of our sectors, which is the common denominator. And all of these sectors, although they're providing around 7 million jobs to European people living in Europe and providing services and goods to people in Europe, they have the need also to move forward and to be able to meet the Green Deal goals. So in this framework, the idea is that we are working towards developing common climate neutral solutions to close the loops of energy, to close the loops of feedstock, whether it is primary or secondary loops, but also define the global leadership of process industries in Europe, but also to see what is possible to be replicated outside of Europe. The aspect of being a strong contributor in EU economy, but still being competitive, it is extremely important for our 10 sectors. And we are also working towards what is known as the new ways of developing products and processes, thanks to using digital tools and digitalization. Having said this, I mean, for us is moving forward, but the speed of action is different as well. So it's important also to highlight a bit how different sectors find a common platform of working together towards common solutions that can be replicated to another sector or can be replicated elsewhere. So, and making a statement also on the biannual reporting, it will be a challenge for us. Is one of the boxes in the table shown by Daria, but the challenge of being able to collect all the different findings, and just as a number, to provide you a number, within Spire, the first Spire, we had 140 projects. 140 projects. And that's a hell of a work to be able to collect all that amount of information. So have mercy on us. We'll try to help you with the next reporting, but it will be a challenging task for us. Thanks.
Thank you, Aurela. I have a few questions to the panels, but I think please start thinking also about questions you would like to put into Slido. I will start asking in 15, 20 minutes your Slido questions. But let me maybe kick it a little bit off on my side. Now, we have now 2022. Horizon Europe started a year ago. On the other hand, the work programs for 2021, 2022 are out. You heard Joanna Drake, the work programs for 2023, 2024 are about to be finalized already. What would you say in 2022, if you look into partnerships, what has really changed? Factories of the Future, a big name, now it's made in Europe. Or Spire, a big name, now Process for Planet. Have just the names changed, or has anything else changed to the positive, to the negative? And I'm happy to kick it off this time with you, Rika, and then with Aurela, and then, yeah, also to Eva and to Daria. What has changed?
Okay, thank you. Well, subject-wise, I think it's, in a way, continuity, but renewed. And as in everything we are talking here, the green and the sustainable and circularity issues are stronger than before, and that's how it should be. So in a way, I think the digital part was there quite strong already in the Factories of the Future. And of course, the sustainability as such, as maybe in the sense like how manufacturing industry itself can be sustainable and environmental friendly. Now we are talking maybe more challenging that how actually manufacturing contributes to the whole circular economy and sustainability of the society. So I think there is a shift, quite strong shift in that sense. From the partnership point of view, of course, I mean, this is a different framework, and this, as I said, there's quite a different sort of KPIs and information collection system. It is very good to have a very consistent and clear system. So I think that's very good, but we also have to be realistic in this collection of the data, that we are collecting only data that is, and information that is first of all valuable, so that you can really count on it, that it's correct. It's not just some numbers, that you get some numbers, but you get the right numbers and you can compare. So there's still maybe things to done to try to simplify and make it more easy, but I know it's complicated to make it easy. So, but these are the changes I see.
Thank you, Rika. Aurela, any reaction? What changed?
Well,
if you have to summarize it.
Well, a part of the name, I have to say that within Spire, our scope of work, it was resource efficiency, it was energy efficiency. Right now we are working under a new framework, which is the Green Deal. And this has changed somehow the way of moving forward. And something that has been accelerated is the speed of action. So if before we were working on somehow TRLs up to 7, right now we have to move forward with TRLs up to 8 and 9. And this, it means that you need to be able to move forward much quicker and be able to deliver with specific KPIs. If I think of Spire, I think it was extremely important building block. And if you think of building a house, you need very strong foundations. And with Spire, we did that. However, right now, the challenge is how to bring up very strong walls that protect or somehow help all of these 10 sectors to move forward. But one of the challenges is moving from TRL 7 to TRL 8 and 9. In the presentation of Daria, I noted down to be open and to be transparent. I think we have to be cautious how much open we'd like to be and how much transparent we need to be. And I'd like to take the word of the European Commissioner that said, open as necessary, closed as you should be. So we should be careful and cautious, because moving to piloting and moving to upscaling, we should be able to protect the EU innovation, and it should be the European companies and European industries to benefit first from this. So that's a very strong word of caution on behalf of Processes for Planet.
Thank you. Any big change? Where do I start? Daria, I start, and then I'm handing over to Eva. Daria, what have you seen? Or is it too early to say you have seen any changes?
No, I must say that for me there is a real change at different levels. First of all, if we really think about the policy context and the way the partnerships are being seen under Horizon Europe, there is a real change between the Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe. First of all, because they really become even more strategic instrument and they are fully integrated into the Horizon Europe strategy. And that means also that they become, in a way, also an instrument for us to be more reactive, and it is also what is expected, for example, from the partnerships, to be flexible, to be reactive, and this is to be better aligned with the Horizon Europe. But this is, of course, that means also that the other instruments of the Horizon Europe should be also better aligned with the partnership. So that's one thing. Another thing that I think is very positive is the fact that we moved from this kind of, let's say, cloud of different partnerships into something much more structured, and also putting under one umbrella the public-public and public-private partnerships. I think it's really an advantage. When I see it from the perspective of the public-public partnership, let's say, that I'm coordinating, you can see how giving this new opportunity, how this gives the new opportunity also for those to be better connected with the private ones. We were talking about the interactions, how we can interact, how we can bring new synergies, how we can bring the possibilities, for example, in the health sector, of how we can combine the academia and for example, the SMEs. And there are different partnerships, how we can use, for example, the AI in the health sector. So I think that there are a lot of different new elements that we can take the advantage from by bringing those under the same umbrella. And this is the way I see that things are moving forward, and hopefully it's going to be even more pronounced in the next years.
Eva?
I actually totally agree with this perspective of having partnerships now well integrated into Horizon Europe, because beforehand I had the feeling that sometimes those ERANETs, joint programming initiatives, were not really even understood as a part of Horizon 2020. But on top of that, I think from a perspective of a member state, what changed is the, first of all, size of those partnerships. They are becoming bigger and bigger, like they are merging some initiatives that were beforehand separate and different ERANETs, for example, now into one bigger. So they are also more ambitious, and this is also challenging for a member state being a partner in those public partnerships, co-funded ones, because it demands more resources in general. But it scopes a bit better the whole ambitions in the specific topic. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think, transparency and a bit of openness. This is going into a good direction. It's more easy to understand who's behind, who is who in partnerships, and that's also quite important from the perspective of a member state, to be perfectly aware who are the main players there, and how to really engage the companies or research organizations from the national level into those international European associations and actions that are happening there. And also, since some majority, I would say, of partnerships are based on associations that were there for quite some time, it's also important for newcomers to be able to join. So this is also something we see now, but more open approach to new members, new partners from different countries, different sectors, including SMEs. Because sometimes when we think European partnerships, we think big business, big companies, but it's also something, I think, attractive for smaller ones.
Thank you, Eva. Let me do a little jump. You just mentioned newcomers. Now, I'm an SME. I have a short-term perspective. I get told, oh, I should join a partnership. It's a membership fee. Why should I actually join a partnership? Why it would be attractive as a newcomer, as an SME, to join a partnership? What would you say from each of your perspective? Why it wouldn't make sense? Why would you encourage them to go into these discussions? I don't know. Rika, you want to start again? Or
Yes, I'm talking with many SMEs in manufacturing sector, and there are two ways to come into this kind of partnerships. One is to become a partner of the association and pay the fee, which is not usually very much for SMEs, so it's usually lower, depends of course of the partnership. Then you really get into the discussions, but there's also many open ways to participate in the partnership without being and paying any fees, especially in this kind of like Made in Europe. So there's lots of open things happening, and you also have organizations around you and bigger companies around you that have more resources to be a real partner in the partnership, but you can still contribute and come into that. And finally, of course, the calls, especially in the Made in Europe part, are totally open for SMEs, so you don't have to pay anything, you can only receive funding.
Thank you, very clear. Daria, anything on newcomers and SMEs?
I think Rika already covered everything. I think, either as a partner coming through an association, for example, of like UCOP, for example, who is the association of the smaller and medium enterprises. But I think the calls and the calls for projects are a really great opportunity for the SMEs. And again, I think there will be more and more openings of the opportunities, not only in the let's say the private or industry-driven ones, but also in the public ones for the SMEs.
Thank you. Eva, Aurela?
Yeah, I would say that this is a bit of a different door to Horizon Europe. So why not to use it? In order to have a project in Horizon Europe, you have to first have a consortium of partners. You have to be really well connected to have enough international contacts and also across different sectors. So once you join an association that's behind one of those partnerships, you actually have it all together, 2 in 1, let's say. So you have partners, you have contacts with your sector, and you also are already working on ideas of your future projects. So I would say that if you are an SME with a strategic vision for development of some specific, I don't know, material or any other endeavor, that's the way forward, the way to move your business a bit up on the ladder.
Thank you. Aurela, what would you recommend such an SME?
Well, as EMA, we are an SME, and the added value of this European framework program is that they have created the frame for everyone to be equal. So everyone has the same equal amount of chances of accessing finance, developing a project, and so on. However, the number of SMEs in Europe is the biggest in number, but they can have a limited impact because they are much focused. So they are much more, they have a niche market or a niche way of working. So in order to create the linkages within the framework program, we have the right conditions to build large companies, medium small companies, small companies or micro companies together with RTOs that helps to look in a different way at things. So if within a company you have a certain vision that goes forward, and the nicest thing in SMEs is that they have a very flat decision making compared to large companies where the decision making, it is extremely complex. So they have some major advantages, but they need someone to pull them up, to move all of us together. So within the framework program, this is the added value. Everyone is equal. There are no small or big or medium. Everyone is equal, and that's a major thing. Whether be part of a partnership or not be part of the partnership, I think that's depend on the SMEs. However, the opportunities are there. Within the partnership, there are activities dedicated to members that pay fees, but there are also activities that are dedicated to non-members in order to attract new members, whether they can be full members or associated partners. But the partners within these large partnerships, they also inform SMEs as part of our membership, so they have access to information. And another advantage of being official part of a partnership is that you have a word and your voice is being heard. So you can be the pen holder for the calls which are being developed, and that is a major advantage. However, which door you choose, That's, I think in my eyes, that's not the most important. Important is you have access to information and you can create opportunities.
Thank you, Daria. So it's a bit of perspective, not think about membership fees, but actually a partnership can give you a lift if you want. Yeah, okay. I have a few questions here, but I see also questions in Slido are coming up. So let us start with a question of sliders, and each of the panelists should feel free to come in. The first is a bit, okay, we have 47 partnerships. Is there a limit of partnership number for the Commission? So do we say after 50 it's over? I don't know. I think, Daria, you want to take the question?
Well, I think that there is still room and there is still programming, but maybe Eva can confirm that. I think this is also in hands of the program committees and the agreement of the member states. Long-term, let's say, discussions and program discussions, so probably it cannot be expanded to the, with never-ending number. But maybe one thing I would like to mention, and I think it comes from also about the idea where is the room for the new partnerships, is that not everything has to be translated for the partnership and through the partnership, and we there are the bottom-up instruments within the Horizon Europe, like the ones that are part of the widening and the ERA, which are like a kind of old-type ERANET funding instruments, where if you want to create, let's say, a basis for the new network, because I think that this was mentioned, that many of the partnerships, I mean, they are now really very big ones, but they stemmed from a progressive work and enlargement or merging of the smaller ones. And there are new topics that require a new collaboration. And for that, there are still open the bottom-up instruments that are under Horizon Europe. So you can also address, let's say, this kind of needs through those instruments.
Does anybody else? Eva? Yeah.
Can also take other questions that I see there because they are all related, but I will start with this one. Well, there is no number, but there is of partnerships, but there is a budget cap. So this is the limit. And the limit is, as I said, 49% of the budget of the second pillar of Horizon Europe. And we are now at some 30-something level, let's say. So, of course, most of the budget was already decided at the beginning to be able to really speed up with the process, but there is still room for some new initiatives. Those new initiatives will be identified in the second strategic plan for Horizon Europe. At the moment, we are still working and operating in the frame of the first strategic plan. And those 49 partnerships are all in this first strategic plan. And the first wave of them already there, and there is a second wave now being prepared. So those topics are already there because they are on this list of 49. It's just some of them were from the very beginning prepared to start in 23, 24. So they are still in this first strategic plan, but there are like two waves in this first strategic plan. The discussion about the second strategic plan is starting slowly now, and it will last most of the time in the autumn and also next year, and we will then see what we have. Of course, there are some topics that were kind of left behind at the beginning 3 years ago, for later maybe, let's see. But also there are some new ones that are popping up. So this is definitely not something decided at the moment. I remember from the beginning there were some discussions about brain research, about forestry, about advanced materials, but this was something that was very, very generally discussed, and let's see what will happen now. It's very open at the moment, and we are actually still now working on the second wave. The Commission is also asking member states to commit, because second wave is mostly for co-funded partnerships, with some exceptions. So it depends on the budget of member states. So the responses are being collected, and the final decisions will be probably made in the autumn. So this is an ongoing process, and we will see what will happen with specific topics and also the budget for the second strategic plan for the last years of Horizon Europe.
Okay, Aurela or Rika, do you want to come in or?
Yeah, I can. if you like. For me, the question is not how many new partnership, but do we have any gaps that we need to create a partnership on? It's not about the number, is where we have a specific issue that we need to tackle at European level. And the question, it was for Jürgen as working at the European Commission, but it is not the European Commission decision to create a partnership. Is a common decision taken together with the European member states. So at the end of the day, in case there are any existing gaps in the existing framework of partnership, please let us know or let the European Commission know, and they will be able to start discussing about that. So honestly, it's not about the numbers, it's about where we have a gap we need to anticipate and we need to work on.
Thank you, Aurela. Rika, you want to add? Yeah.
Yes, maybe just a small comment on this. I mean, if the resources and the funding for the partnership is not increasing, then it's also good to analyze how well the current funding is covering the needs of the current partnerships and how oversubscribed some of them are. So is there resources enough already for the running ones?
Fair comment. No, I think it's not that we start with a second strategic plan for the years 2025 to 2027 and we start from scratch. We are in the middle of a big process, no doubt. Okay, then I see the next one. I'm not sure whether it's more addressed to me or to the panelists. How does the European Commission ensure partners' access to all relevant information from project coordinators to enable partners to consistently report on programs' progress? Maybe I asked Rika and Aurela to come in with their perspective. What are the expectations? It's the first question where I have, how does the European Commission ensure partners' access to all relevant information from projects coordinators? I have my own view, but I think it's up to the panelists maybe to come in. How do they see the problem? And maybe also Daria and Eva if they want to come in. Who wants? Rika, you want to start? Yeah.
Well, of course, I mean, partnerships are very much about this as well, so to spread the information from the projects. So it's helping the European Commission, helping, we together want to spread the information and make it visible. So I can of course speak about, again, from the Made in Europe and the EFRA perspective. So there's a very extensive information source at the websites of EFRA. So there's a portal where you see a lot of information from the projects, from their participation, but in particular also of the results and the substances. So there's a lot of information that you can gain through these websites and the webinars and the information shared through these partnerships. Of course, then the Commission's official ones as well.
Thank you. Aurela, yeah, you want to come in briefly? Yeah, okay.
Yes. Well, in fact, there is a big challenge. So once projects apply for funding as part of an open call, they define their own KPIs, which are not necessarily what the biannual reporting is looking at. So at the end of the day, if we like to have a biannual monitoring report that is covering or is easy to get the information, then I think it should be part of the preparation for the call to integrate already some KPIs. Because one of the main challenges is once a project is finished, the project coordinator is not working anymore on that, if there is not a second one or there is not a network created from there. So the difficulty is to identify the person that was in charge of the project and to get access to new information which was not developed in time for the duration of the project. So this is a major challenge that with Inspire, when they'll have to provide the information, it will be a challenge to collect this information. So practical advice, it will be somehow to integrate some of the biannual monitoring report KPIs as part of the preparation for the call in order to ease the reporting at the end of it. So even if the project is finished, then it is possible still to collect the information. That will be something that will ease your life to collect the information at the end, but also Spire Office that they will need to go back to closed project and look for info which it's not even there because it was not meant to be there.
Okay. Eva, you want to come in? How relevant is the question for you from the knowledge perspective?
Well, it's
And
crucial
also
for us to
Daria.
have these information. That's for sure. But it's not so easy to get them. But I can also maybe not really now say from the perspective of a partnership knowledge hub, but more from the co-funded partner from partnerships, because NCBR, my organization, is also partner in those co-funded. So, well, it's definitely not easy. We are following, of course, the beneficiaries, what they are doing, and measuring the impact. But to have a common set of indicators and those processes better organized, it was a challenge. So I would say that we are looking forward into works on the biannual reporting system to have it, but maybe more easier to share also with others and to compare those data. And the European Commission can only support this process, I think, and to ask for those data. And that's that would be my approach.
Thank you. Daria, how do you see that? What would be your expectations?
Well, actually, what I can give you also is the insight in what is already being done and in the process to facilitate that. So first of all, I think that there are two different levels there. One is when we think about the monitoring. One is the level of the monitoring of the partnership as a whole, and for that we have those common indicators, but it doesn't mean that the projects that are being financed by the partnerships cannot contribute, of course, to those common indicators. So the list is already there. This is something that can be also shared, and it can be also integrated as part of the calls of the partnerships, for example, to make sure that some specific numbers will be there when the projects are going to be implemented. The other one is indeed the project level, and as you probably know, depending on the partnership, actually the monitoring system is set up in a different way. So for the institutionalized partnership, actually, the projects that are being financed, they are reporting directly through the Commission system. So the data from those projects is already being integrated by the Commission together with the other, let's say, instruments, and this is something that can be aggregated. But for the co-funded and co-programmed, they have their own monitoring system, and the Commission has set up, again, a set of, let's say, a number of indicators, a number of things that needs to be collected, that is being, of course, that has been communicated to the partnerships and has to be integrated into the monitoring system of the partnerships for the projects, and then connected to the Commission system. So it is in progress. I'm not saying that it is easy, but the things are starting to be really framed, and it means that we will have a set of indicators that will be given for the projects and that will allow us to collect the data from different partnerships, from the European Commission, and through the Commission system. It can be used for the dashboard, it can be used for the aggregated process of the monitoring, and of course the BNN monitoring report is one of the elements that not only collects but exploits this data to make it in a way, let's say, in the more strategic and policy-driven, to demonstrate to the policymakers how this data can be exploited further.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Well, very briefly from my side, but I don't want to overstep my role as a moderator here to monopolize the debate. 2 points to this question. First, I think we should consider that the reporting is not only on what is happening on projects, but also we call it, for instance, a co-program partnerships, so-called additional activities, which means we take the SRIA of a partnership, which private investments are taking place, and there, and I see it here from the 2 examples we have here on the panel, what is actually happening in this regard. Outside any work programs funded by Horizon Europe or the projects we are running, that's the first point. And that's actually something quite important. And this is already, for me, already a big change which is currently taking place. That we see how much private funding is actually taking place along a SRIA, which is not triggered by Horizon Europe, but which is triggered by the private partners. That's the first point. The second point, I think, to narrate on the question, yes, the EC has here a role. We have to respect confidentiality, for instance. So we need to have to aggregate results and not to reveal what is coming from a project to every partner, but to work here with the private side, the private associations. That's the second point, and I think we have also to manage to have IT tools really ready in this regard. So we clearly have a role, but if you bear with me as a moderator, I don't want to engage now into a very detailed discussion. I want just to make the point we have the project level, and we have the additional activities level, how we call it in the MOU. Okay, there's still a question on the SMEs. And there are some people insisting. I tried to trigger it a little bit by, what about it? Do you want to add anything? How can SMBs actually be more involved? What can you offer more to SMEs? Don't know, who wants to come in? Anybody? Aurelia, you want to start? And then Eva, and then Rika, and then Daria. Yeah. What can we do more for SMEs?
So, with regard to SMEs, at least in the P4P partnership, we have a different level of fees for different sizes of companies. And within our association is exactly the same principle. The idea is to create the level playing field for everyone to have access to information. And there is a distinction between being a direct member or not being a direct member, but you are a partner in that. So there are different ways of accessing the information, and the entry fee, it is adapted to the size of the company. And within the newest internal rules we have revised, we have also created a new category for micro companies, which will have a very symbolic entry fee for at least 5 years in order to allow them to have access to information. So these are all tools that have been put in place within P4P in order to create the entry or to create possibilities for micro or SMEs to get access to information. So I think we have made what was possible to be made within the frame of the partnership, and then it's up to SMEs to see what is feasible and what is in for them. So they need to try and then see whether what is discussed, what is agreed, how things are moving forward, they are meeting their expectations.
Okay. Maybe just one word of background, since we speak about fees. This is relevant mainly for co-program partnerships where you have a private side, and the private side has to organize itself. So they have also to find the private money from the members. You're in a very different world if you speak about a joint undertaking where you have a legal person set up at European level, staffed and paid out of the European Union budget and private contributions from certain companies. So it's a very different setting. Just a word of explanation. I don't know, Rika and Daria and Eva, what can we do more for the SMEs?
Yes, I fully agree with Aurelia was saying. So, I mean, there's different fees for and entries, different ways to enter into the partnership itself. But also want to say that at least in the Made in Europe, the SMEs have always been there, and the whole community is full of SMEs. So it's not always the thing that they cannot come into, but they can. And many SMEs that are innovative and want to go to the European collaboration have very good success and good ways to go. One thing, of course, that can increase it, that it is a precondition of the call that you have SMEs in there. So that's a very effective way to get them in. And for the SME itself, again, maybe repeating what said before, that it's good to hook up with some of the research organizations or bigger companies that you work with and enter together, because then you don't have to do the job yourself only.
Okay. Eva, what can we do more for SMEs and partnerships?
This is always a challenge, of course, for SME to understand this whole system. But I think that apart from really Googling by themselves who to contact and how to start, I would say that if you as an SME you are really motivated to do something in scope of those partnerships, I would maybe suggest also contacting some advisors, like national contact points, for example. I can speak speak, of course, mostly for my colleagues from Warsaw, but they are very knowledgeable. They know who is there and how to start, and maybe you can look for some facilitator for the beginning. And maybe the result of this conversation would also be that there are some other parts of Horizon Europe interesting for you, like European Innovation Council funding or some other projects that will get you into this kind of bubble, let's say, and make it easy for you to expand your activities. But of course, if you are looking into some specific partnership, and then you know that there's an association behind, the best way is to contact them directly. But there are some other partnerships, as we already said, like co-funded, and then this is just about funding the right call and applying. So this is a completely different story. There's no association behind because there are only member states there and the European Commission, so it works differently. So it's really first about understanding which topic is for you and how to then proceed.
Thank you. Daria, anything from your side which you can advise?
One thing is that, and I think that's the main starting point, is what are you looking for? I mean, if you are looking to get engaged in the strategy, then indeed, going through the associations, trying to get into the partnership and so on, if this is your objective. But I would assume that for the majority of the SMEs, it's more about collaboration, funding, training, this kind of things. And this is something that, so for that, you do not have to be part of the partnership. You actually, the partnership becomes for you a kind of a service provider where you can find the funding opportunities, where you can find the training opportunities, where you can find the collaborative opportunities and so on. And so I think that for the majority of the partnership, if this is not yet done, but many of them have specific help desks, as mentioned also by Eva, there are the national contact points that can help. So there are a lot of instruments already that are developed also by the partnerships to facilitate the access to the portfolio of the activities in which the SME can engage or can profit from.
Okay. Okay, let's look at, I take the next two questions a little bit together, because the first question, who is getting popular in industrial clusters, has also to do with SMEs. And then there was a question about the smaller member states. Okay, I don't know whom they target, maybe Germany and France together. But if I take these two questions, how do you see the role of industrial clusters in partnerships representing companies? We have also the EN network. And the second one, any insight on how you see smaller member states being part of the partnerships? Who wants to go first here on these two questions? Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I can take this, the second one for start. Well, that depends totally on the potential of the country. The partnerships are the co-funded, and those ones who are directed to member states from joint undertakings, they are open to any member state. It's just the decision that it's being made on the level of the member state, completely independent on how much we want to invest in specific topic of a partnership. And this is an analysis that I was also involved on the level of Poland, but my colleagues from other countries, smaller as well, were doing exactly the same job with their colleagues back in capitals, consulting business, consulting research community, looking into some statistics from previous projects and so on and so forth for previous programs, to kind of estimate what the budget, what kind of budget we can invest in this specific partnership. Let's say blue economy, for example. So this is what's crucial here. There is no difference in this process in terms of the size of the country. Of course, the result could be different because of the size of the country. Yeah? So that's the only thing that the result is different, because the countries are investing budget as they go with their own strategic approach as well. Because for countries, this is also a tool actually to use for implementing national strategies in related areas, and it's actually quite good to have this opportunity and to look at partnerships not as a goal in itself, but also as a tool, as some kind of additional activity that can be used to speed up the development of specific branches of economy and so on and so forth. So that's crucial, not exactly the size of the country, I would say. Maybe one more thing, there's still a challenge as it comes to synergies, and some of the countries, and again, this is not exactly the size thing, but the type of the country who can use also synergies with structural funds. Partnerships are open for that in theory, but in practice it's still not working quite well. So for me, being Polish, we would really like to invest a bit more of ERDF money for partnerships, but we still don't exactly know how to do it, how to merge those two sources of funding. We are waiting for a really long time for the guidelines from the European Commission, and they are promised to be issued soon, but still not crystal clear. And let's see, because this is also something that could help some of the smaller countries, but also in general countries who have access to cohesion policy funds to invest more in research innovation thanks to this partnerships tool again, I would say.
Thank you, Eva. I turn to Aurela and then I come to you. Clusters and the smaller member states.
Maybe
Whatever
I'll
this
just
is,
rephrase the question on small member states. Nobody in Europe is small because the European Union is about unifying everyone and make something much bigger. So I don't think it's about size, I think it's about availability of different infrastructures. What is already there and where would you like to be in the future? For example, last week, Belgium is a small country compared to France and Germany, but our members informed us that there was a meeting saying, look, Germany is working on hydrogen, France is working on hydrogen, we should be part of the network. So this is the kind of dynamics we are looking for, and we can help build even on a larger scale within the frame of the different European partnerships. So for me, it's about if as a country or as a region, you know where you'd like to go, you have all the possibilities to move forward. And working with neighboring countries, it creates you that framework. So the possibilities are there, the financing is there, you just need the political will to move forward, and it will happen. On the clusters, within the partnership of Processes for Planet, we can help if you are in the room and you'd like to know more about it. We are working on two major ideas on the clusters. The first one is industrial clusters, and we are working with industrial symbiosis, where we are trying to connect different flows from one sector to another one, so what is waste in one sector can become resource in another sector. What is energy that you cannot use in your site, you can use it somewhere else, so the possibilities are there. And in that frame, this is the first concept we are working on with different regions in the European Union. And the other one is the Hub for Circularity. So for this, we are working on how to connect, whether it is industry or whether it is local communities, we are trying to connect the different flows, whether energy, whether water, whether valorization of wastewater. So the idea is that we have the appropriate conditions, we have the right technical expertise, we have the industrial stakeholders, we have multiple regional stakeholders and authorities that are interested to work with us. So the possibilities are there. If you are interested to know more, don't hesitate to reach out for me. I'll explain you more what we are doing, and I'll just put you in contact with the different project coordinators.
Thank you. Daria and Enrica, yeah?
Yes, so maybe about the countries, and let me put back my hat of somebody who is also in the process of the preparation of a partnership. and the integration of different countries. I fully agree with what was said about the fact that there are no small or big countries, and actually the challenge may be the same for smaller or bigger. It really depends on what is the capacity of the capacity and the interest of the specific country to participate in the partnership. But in terms of the process, and I think that this is something maybe also a kind of a voice to, or I think I would like to share also as an information to the member states, but also to the European Commission, is that in reality, when the partnership is being planned, at some time when the Commission sends the invitation for the commitment, so the member states are being asked to say how much they would like to commit in terms of the, let's say, in cash and in-kind contributions. The thing is that this invitation is being sent to the permanent representation of the countries in Brussels. And there is not necessarily a connection between these people and the ones who are actually have the knowledge about the capacity of what the country can do, or and how they could contribute. So I think this is a real challenge, and for example, for us to be able to somehow grab this, because not in all topics you also have the information, and that's why I think it's also this whole monitoring and evaluation process will be helpful in that, because it helps us to connect the bridge between the partnerships and what is happening at the national level, because of the fact that today, for example, if we come to the countries and asking, okay, actually what you are doing in this specific field, they do not have necessarily all the information that is needed. And I think that in the future it's going to improve. And this is the way, for example, that we are challenging this today for the creation of the partnership, because we have to go to each country and to see, okay, these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses, this is how we can build and integrate, and this is what you could do in the future partnership. And so this is, for example, what we are doing for our partnerships. We had to organize 30 individual meetings with every member state, and try to bring this knowledge also to them, and try to tell them, please try to create a national mirror group or hub that can help you in the specific topic, also to bring all different types of stakeholders at the national level to help you to gather the information and to have a better involvement in the partnership. So I think that this is, I really hope also that this new process, monitoring process, is going to help us also in advancing in this connection.
Many practical suggestions. Rika.
Very quickly. So Finland is a small country. I tell a story what we are currently doing, and I'm heavily involved with it. We are actually doing a kind of framework how to evaluate which European initiatives we should enter. And we have a kind of very simple framework that we evaluate the impact to Finland, the business impact, how competent we are in the area, what we can bring to the table. Then, of course, if we can implement it, so do we have ecosystems that are good enough then to do the things, and interest and commitment, and then the spillover effects. And this kind of framework is under development, because this is exactly the problem, that there's many initiatives and you have to quickly evaluate, and maybe the persons that are evaluating whether to enter are not the ones that have all the information. So maybe this is going to be online, so if somebody's interested.
Very good, very
question,
good.
Yeah.
I would like to stop with a dream question, because I see there is a clever man already signaled to me, you have to move on, with a dream question. Let us think about the partnerships in 2 or 3 years, okay? No one has mentioned so far we wanted to enhance the impact of partnerships, but we are facing a war in Ukraine, heavy disruption of supply chains. The industry is facing COVID-19. Within 2 or 3 years, the partnerships be part of the success that we're getting out of it, or not? What would you, in a very brief statement, say? What would be your estimate? Success? Still, we have still to fight hard? What would you say, very briefly? Aurela, you're there? Very brief.
Yeah, of course. I can really state here that all partnership will be busy. First working, and then working to prepare the biannual monitoring report. But the overall, I mean, the pressure we are right now, if you see what's happening at the borders of Europe, if you see the need to act as quickly as you can, in the best way you can, I can assure you in 2 or 3 years, and even 7 years from now, they will be busy, really hard working.
Thank you, Aurela. Okay. Eva?
Well, I would say that in 2 or 3 years we'll be in the middle of everything. Yeah, this will be the time when we will have projects really in the process of implementation. Maybe we will see some first results. We will also know a bit more about the impact of these changes that we introduced at the beginning of Horizon Europe. And we will for sure know what will be the next partnerships at the end of Horizon Europe, because that will be the time to also decide on this a second strategic plan.
Thank you. Rika, and then last word to Daria, who introduced the whole session.
Okay, yes, of course, it would be lovely to see all the partnerships working well and working together. And of course, then also see that there's enough resources for the vibrant community in manufacturing, which is very, very broad and diverse, and always there's so much interest into that. Thank you.
Thank you. Daria?
I would say that I'm a very optimistic person by nature. And I think that for me, you know, it's a really a unique opportunity and a unique moment, having, for example, a partnership knowledge hub, which is, you know, like a hotline where you have member states, partnerships, and the Commission sitting together, and meaning that whenever there is a need to implement something rapidly, it can be done through this kind of instrument. So I'm optimistic.
Okay. Thanks a lot for your attention, that you have followed this first session on partnerships. I think our session is now over. I think, can we conclude with a big applause from all colleagues? You have not to use Slido for that. Okay, the next session will start at 2 p.m., right? 2 p.m. here also in this room. Okay, many thanks to the panelists that they took the time to come, and it was nice. Many thanks.